My name is Chloe Wilson, and the day my husband threw our baby into my arms and screamed, "Get out of my house," was the day I stopped believing I deserved to live. His sister had poisoned his mind with lies. My own parents begged me to stay quiet. And in less than 5 minutes, I lost my marriage, my home, and the future I had dreamed of. I walked away carrying 3 terrified children, with nowhere to go and not a single dollar to my name. But 6 years later, the same man who destroyed my life was standing outside my office, crying and begging for one more chance. He finally knew the truth, but by then, I had learned something that changed my life forever. Sometimes the most painful betrayal becomes the greatest revenge, because success hurts liars more than revenge ever could. My name is Chloe Wilson, and I grew up believing marriage was forever. When I was 23, my parents introduced me to Daniel. They told me he was responsible, hardworking, and would give me a happy life. I trusted them. Only a few weeks after our wedding, everything changed. Daniel became cold, controlling, and selfish. Nothing I did was ever good enough. If dinner was 5 minutes late, he shouted. If the house wasn't perfect, he insulted me. Slowly, I stopped smiling. I stopped calling my friends. I stopped recognizing the woman staring back at me in the mirror. The worst part wasn't the shouting. It was believing I actually deserved it. Then there was his older sister, Rebecca. From the first day we met, she hated me. No matter how kind I tried to be, she always found a reason to criticize me. I never understood why. I thought if I stayed patient, one day she would accept me. I had no idea she was already planning to destroy my entire life. Rebecca waited until Daniel was completely under her control. Whenever he left for work, she would call him. She'd whisper things like, "Chloe spends hours talking to another man while you're gone. I saw her smiling at someone outside the house. She deletes messages before you come home." Every single word was a lie. I had no idea those conversations were happening behind my back. At first, Daniel only became quieter. Then he started checking my phone, questioning every call, asking where I had been, even when I hadn't left the house. No matter how honestly I answered, he had already chosen to believe someone else. By then, we had 3 beautiful children. They were my whole world. I stayed because I wanted them to grow up with both parents. I kept hoping my husband would remember the woman he married. Instead, his anger became worse every week. One evening, he came home furious. He accused me of cheating. I begged him to tell me who had filled his mind with these lies. He refused to listen. Before I could explain anything, he shoved me to the floor. Our children started crying. The youngest baby was screaming in fear. I remember holding my face, wondering how the man I once loved had become someone I didn't recognize. The next morning, both our families gathered at the house. I thought they were there to help us solve everything. Instead, Daniel stood in front of everyone with cold eyes. Without asking for the truth, without giving me a chance to defend myself, he ended our marriage. Then he placed our youngest baby into my arms with force and shouted, "Take your children and leave. I never want to see you again." I couldn't even feel my legs. My oldest child held my hand tightly and asked, "Mom, where are we going?" I had no answer. With tears running down my face, I walked away carrying my children, believing my life was over. But I had no idea that this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the biggest comeback of my life. When I arrived at my father's house, I wasn't the same woman who had left it years before. I was exhausted, broken, emotionally numb. Some days, I didn't even have the strength to get out of bed. I barely spoke to anyone. I smiled only when my children looked at me, because I refused to let them carry the pain I was carrying. At night, after they fell asleep, I would quietly cry into my pillow and ask myself one question: what did I do to deserve this? There was never an answer. Weeks turned into months. I realized something that changed my life forever. No one was coming to save me. If I wanted my children to have a better future, I had to become strong enough to build it myself. So I made a promise. I would never let my children grow up believing their mother was a victim. I updated my resume, applied for every job I could find, and faced rejection after rejection. But I kept going. Finally, a small company gave me a chance. The salary wasn't much, but it was enough to buy groceries and pay for my children's school supplies. During the day, I worked. At night, I studied new skills after putting my children to bed. While everyone else was sleeping, I was rebuilding my life. Year after year, I earned promotions. I became more confident. I saved every extra dollar. Eventually, I started my own business. Slowly, it grew. Then, it grew again. For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I was proud of. Not because I had become successful, but because I had survived everything that was meant to destroy me. Meanwhile, Daniel's life wasn't going the way he expected. One day, he accidentally discovered old phone records and messages that proved I had never betrayed him. Then someone else confirmed what Rebecca had done. She had lied, manipulated him, destroyed our family because she simply didn't want me in their lives. The truth hit him like a truck. Everything he believed, everything he accused me of, everything that ended our marriage, was based on a lie. And for the first time in years, he realized he hadn't lost an unfaithful wife. He had lost the only person who truly loved him. A week later, the receptionist called my office. "Ms. Wilson, there's someone here asking to see you. He says it's important." I looked through the glass door, and my heart stopped for a second. It was Daniel, the man who had once destroyed my life, the man who believed lies instead of believing his wife. For a moment, memories came rushing back. The insults, the tears, the night I walked away with my 3 children. I took a deep breath and asked the receptionist to let him in. Daniel walked into my office slowly. He looked nothing like the confident man I used to know. His shoulders were heavy. His eyes were filled with regret. For a few seconds, neither of us said a word. Then, with tears in his eyes, he whispered, "Chloe, I'm sorry." He admitted everything. He told me he had finally learned the truth. Rebecca had confessed that she lied because she never wanted me to be part of their family. He said he had spent years blaming himself. He had tried to move on, but every birthday, every holiday, and every family photo reminded him of the family he had destroyed. Then he looked at me and said, "Please, give me one more chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I'll spend the rest of my life making it right." I stayed silent, not because I hated him, but because I no longer needed his apology to heal. Years earlier, I would have begged him to stay. Now, I had built a peaceful life for myself and my children. I smiled gently and said, "Daniel, I forgave you a long time ago." For a moment, hope returned to his face. Then I finished my sentence. "But forgiveness doesn't erase the consequences of our choices. You believed lies without trusting the woman who stood beside you. You broke my heart, but even worse, you broke the home our children deserved. I've rebuilt my life. My children are happy. We finally have peace. I won't trade that peace for another chance." Tears rolled down his face. He nodded because deep down, he knew I was right. Before leaving, he quietly said, "I will regret losing you for the rest of my life." I simply replied, "That's a burden only you can carry." He walked away without looking back. I watched from my office window as he disappeared into the distance. There was no anger left in my heart, only gratitude, because the woman who once left his house with nothing now owned the building she was standing in. The greatest revenge wasn't making him suffer. It was proving that the woman he underestimated became stronger, happier, and more successful without him. If someone destroys your confidence with lies, don't spend your life trying to prove them wrong. Spend your life becoming the person they never believed you could be. Sometimes success, peace, and self-respect are the most powerful forms of revenge.